Hello and welcome to Season 7, Episode 2 of Future of XYZ. We are talking today about an explosive topic in terms of its growth in the world, gaming. And our guest today is Andrew Augustin. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us on Future of XYZ.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Andrew, you're a game designer yourself. You've worked with many of the biggest gaming companies, which we'll talk about. You're a 2D animator, so classic, pen and ink or pencil, whatever your medium is, drawing characters, colors, all these things. You're an educator. I'm pretty excited about your role as an assistant professor in the Department of Arts and Entertainment Technologies at the University of Texas, Austin, where you're based now, having recently moved from Houston. And you're an author. I mean, you've written a book about gaming that combines practical insights from your career as a game designer with your teaching philosophy and a bunch more for the next generation. I mean, you've been featured in all sorts of different newspapers and magazines and lists, including Forbes 30 Under 30. It's a pretty impressive profile. And I'm really excited that we get to talk to you because I think you have a really unique kind of intersectional perspective on gaming. But as I always like to do to open these episodes of Future of XYZ, we have to define what it is. So in the context of your expertise, what is gaming?
I mean, when I talk to my students, we kind of have this as an opening kind of assignment to just to kind of be like, what is a game, right? And it's one of those things where it's interesting because everybody has their own kind of definition of what a game is to some extent, right? And a lot of conversation in the video game industry, like when somebody tries something unique and different in the field, it kind of sparks up a conversation like, is this considered a game? Some people will be like, no, some people like, yes. But my simple definition is basically something that you can engage in that has a winning and a losing condition. And that's about as basic as I can personally get it.
I love that. I mean, it's basically like sports. It's like you win or you lose.
Sports are a type of game. So, yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense. And as we think about like the gaming industry, I mean, in preparing for this, I'm not a gamer. I barely watch TV, so I'm like the wrong person. But I am fascinated as I watch my friends with kids, as even my friends and of my age group and beyond who game. And I've been amazed as I've grown in my own career in marketing, how big gaming has become. But prior to really the 1970s, it wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read a little bit of the history. Obviously, we are getting into all sorts of crazy technologies now, but could you just talk a little bit about the history of video gaming and more importantly, kind of where it is today and where you see it heading as we look ahead from a technological and industrial perspective?
So video game and specifically, or like gaming as a whole?
You get to answer the question.
Okay. Oh, so to me, video games, right? The video portion of games, right, is traditionally like something that you could play through a form of digital, or whatever kind of video based, output like a TV or even some kind of handheld thing that has some kind of screen output. So that was like, if I'm not mistaken, around the 70s was when it became a kind of more of a household thing. I guess with the Atari, I might have my dates and everything wrong, but Atari was kind of like one of the big, grandfathers starting of the industry as far as
that
the
was 72. You're exactly correct.
Okay. So like, and then as it started, the industry started getting more popular. I know there was a crash at one point, but I know Nintendo is kind of known as like, the savior of video games because at one point it crashed. I guess because it was a new industry, they didn't know if it was going to be something that was continuing or it was just a fad. Nintendo kind of came out with an entertainment system that really revolutionized and popularized video games and really made it a household thing. Of course, you have Sega come in, Sony, who is a big player now, Nintendo, who's obviously still a big player, Microsoft, various companies came in. So for a very long time, it was mostly about updating graphics, basically, how the visuals look on the screen, right? Of course, sound technologies. You had bleeps and bloops and back in the day, the primitive video game days, but now you have like full orchestral music and sound effects and full, all the Dolby Atmos, whatever kind of sound profiles. Um, so that's been traditionally a thing, like, better graphics, faster RAM, that allows the games to kind of look more realistic. I guess that's really kind of what the industry has traditionally been kind of pushing forward, is a better sense of realism in every generation. And when I say generation, for those who may not know, like the Nintendo Entertainment System was one generation, the Sega Genesis is another generation, PlayStation, so forth. So generations kind of come every like 6 to 8 years or so, 5 to 8 years. We call those generations in the game industry. But each generation, there's more powerful hardware, technology gets more advanced, and they incorporate that into the consoles. And developers take that and try to make the next, it's like giving developers more powerful, fun tools to play with. I kind of like giving artists more and more colors. Like, you got 2 colors you can do right now, but then every generation you kind of double the colors. There's 4, now there's 8, now there's, now we're at the point where there's millions of colors and you can create, amazing paintings, works of art. Doesn't mean that the older games were not good in any way. I actually kind of like to have my students do, let me know if I'm rambling, by the way, because I tend
No, you're good.
I tend to have my students do assignments where I limit what they can use, because I feel like limitation breeds creativity. Because sometimes you just give them all this stuff and it's like, cool, but now what are you going to do with just these, 5 things, right? And it seems daunting, but then when they kind of really think outside the box, they can it breeds something creative. And then it kind of it's just, I like it. And even like, because of that, like old systems, they kind of have a style now, what was once a limitation is now an art form today. So, but yeah, I don't forgot what the question is.
No, that's really neat. I love that. It leads me actually to a question I want to ask you, because you've collaborated with these biggest of the entertainment companies, and not just in gaming, but Paramount, Aristocrat, which is a gaming technology company, Electronic Arts, which is one of my favorites in terms of like kind of the creativity that they put out. There are a bunch of others. What have you learned, Andrew, about the current state and the near future of gaming from these interactions that has either most surprised and or inspired you recently?
I find it interesting that a portion of the industry is really trying to push for VR and AR gaming. My personal opinion on that, I'm curious as to why they keep trying it. It doesn't seem like it's really picking up like it, I guess, could. I mean, they've been trying to do VR since I was a child in the 90s. The Virtual Boy, Nintendo had a system called the Virtual Boy, and that kind of crashed and burned. And there's been various iterations of trying to play around with VR technology. So part of me is like, that's the future, because right, it makes sense. You're taking it from a screen-based, limited screen-based entertainment form, and you're bringing it more into, the real world in a kind of way, or at least having the players feel like they're actually going into this virtual reality realm and interacting with that. But for some reason, it just still has not. I think there's a bunch of hoops that they have to jump through, that they're still having to jump through, that they haven't ironed out just right for it to be like a thing. And I don't know if it's ever going to be really a full thing. So, but that was what I was thinking the future was with gaming. Streaming at one point was a brand new thing when it came to gaming, and like not that long ago, like within the last like 10, 15 years. I guess in tech, that's ancient at this point. Now, where we're going from here, to be honest with you, I have no idea, because current consoles to me, like the PlayStation 5, feels very similar to the PlayStation 4, which to me also feels very similar to PS3 and so forth, right? There's kind of like a point where you get that law of diminishing returns, right? Like you get better with graphics to a point where you can't even really tell the difference anymore. I think we just need a big leap somewhere. And I think the industry might be in an area where they're scrambling to figure out what that might be. I know AI is a tech. I'm sorry, what you were saying?
I was just gonna say, and I want to put I want to put a pin in AI because it might be the answer to this next question. But like I think about gaming and the gaming industry as being very innovative in general, right? Exactly what you
Mhm.
said. Like it started like it's this digital electronic thing that started in the 40s and 50s, you know, and then it became in the 70s, as you were mentioning, like Atari and largely like the arcade game, right? Where people were like in a community space doing this thing together, or at least in cohort. And then it like leaped into, like, as you just said, like the Nintendo or something that's like at home. And now I feel
Mhm.
like it's expanded again, even without AR, VR, into this community-based thing again, even in the privacy, but you know, kind of in the cloud and whatever. I mean, innovation comes in many forms, but I think of the gaming industry as very innovative. What do you think in terms of kind of the role of innovation? Maybe that gets you to AI, or maybe not.
Based on what I've been researching, because I look up a bunch of stuff on the state of gaming, um, I think AI is like the big buzzword right now and how they're going to incorporate that in the game. So instead of having, let's say, an interaction or a few interactions that are predetermined and designed out by designers, now you could have interact dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions of interactions through the use of AI. What I mean by that is like um, if you go talk to a random character that's living in this world, traditionally you already have the dialogue planned out for that character, or if there's various versions of dialogue, depending on what the player did, there's still a limit of what the dialogue from that character is going to be. But with AI, it might just be some completely generated response that may take into account every action you've done in the game thus far, which would make a very unique, personalized experience for every player, right? So that's big. AI can also generate new worlds that other character players probably won't experience. Each game can have its own, whatever custom generated world that the player will have to play through. And just kind of all these different things, right? Assets that don't have to be created by hand by dozens of artists and just kind of generated by AI. This isn't weird. I mean,
Do you,
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I mean, I'm listening to you say this, Andrew, and I can see it. I was at the Adobe conference the last 2 years. Like, I see what they're, for instance, doing with AI and bringing in the tools for creators ostensibly. But
Mhm.
you're a 2D designer and a game designer.
Mhm.
You've contributed quite significantly in your resume as both a character developer and world builder. Like, you're pretty versatile. You have strong creative vision. That's what you're known for from everything that I saw and know
Mhm.
about you. Like within this broader gaming work, kind of industry, what does this AI thing mean for the talent?
I have multiple answers for that, I guess. For the talent, okay, in one kind of viewpoint is a doom and gloom, like, oh no, big corporations are about to, the bottom line, right? You want to make as much money while spending the least amount as possible. If you don't need 30 people, why have 30 people, right? And corporate, they're known for that kind of, cutthroat, just bottom line kind of,
Profit.
yeah, profit margin based. It's business, right? Whatever. Um, so there's a doom and gloom story there because it's like, oh no, and we're going to lose jobs, and then what are we going to do if the AI is taking over? But then there's another kind of side of it because I'm more independent minded. Like I've been, even though I've worked in major industry, I've also done my own thing, and there's an upside to where I'm like, oh man, I can do more than I was able to do by myself. Now I can, I don't know, maybe AI could help me begin to formulate ideas for a project, or maybe it can give me some ideas to help push, past this art block that I'm having, or maybe it could stitch together, these videos and make a good trailer for me, and then I can go in and make modifications there. It could be a thing that is very useful for small teams to produce productions that feel like or made by bigger teams, right? So those are two different ways to look at it, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's if it's technology, to me, as a whole, is supposed to make our lives easier, right? Unfortunately, that means careers get chopped. I mean, you gotta look at Photoshop. I remember Photoshop was one of those things where artists kind of had a big debate, like, oh, it's I don't really consider that art, it's digital, and da da da. You used to have big design firms where everybody would have like a designer would cut out letters and you stick it on your little board and you make the magazine ad. And now you just pull up Photoshop, type it, move your things around. So it's like, I feel like this is just like the next level of that kind of advancement.
Our next episode is with the creative director at Monotype, which does typography. So I'm sure we'll have
Okay,
this conversation.
yeah.
Um,
So I mean, yeah. I
it's
mean,
true. It's where there's it's opportunity and risks
yeah,
together.
yeah.
The industry as a whole, though, coming back to the business of it, you mentioned like Sony, you mentioned Nintendo. I mean, like there has been a commercial explosion in the gaming industry. It's really big business, right? I think it's like,
Mhm.
the video game industry is over $240 billion a year now, right? And it's expected to continue growing 10 to 15% for the next, whatever, 10 years. So, I mean, there's really no end in sight. I mean, there are a couple of factors here that I'm interested in. I mean, the first is, of course, like, what is the impact on the talent? Again, like the designer side talent specifically. The second is, what's the impact on the players and the human mind? And I guess, and you may or may not even have thought about this part, and I don't mean to throw it out, but I'm doing a talk actually at South by in a couple of
Okay.
months about, circular design and digital, because the environmental impact of this growth, because all of this is video based and living in the cloud, is huge. Like, what do you make as someone who makes their career in every aspect and has such a clear passion for gaming? Like, is the commercial explosion of gaming, besides being good for people's pocketbooks, like what's the impact on again those three different constituents?
Um, so very interesting question. It's something I kind of actually have conversations about with friends of mine. Um, I kind of think of it like it kind of narrows it basically makes companies not take as many risks, you know. I think about like the 90s and the amount of cartoons, right? This is not games per se, but like the amount of cartoons we had. You had Animaniacs, Freakazoid, Tiny Toons, you can name it. It was a gazillion franchises being, created. The risk was there. But now that the technology, we have all this data, we have all this, who's streaming this, how many downloads did this get, how many, or what is the big blockbuster game that's making, you know, um, however many millions a month. We need to be just like that. It kind of like stifles the creativity, and then you know everything starts feeling homogenized, right? Everything starts feeling the same, and it's just like it becomes a money thing. It becomes, creativity, any kind of creative endeavor that gets, I guess, infiltrated by the business mind of, business people. You start to lose that creativity. So as a designer, I feel like, yeah, we're kind of seeing a lot of the same kind of games
Rinse and repeat.
versus, yeah, versus like all the new, because if you look at games today, there's a lot of remakes right now. I think we've kind of hit like that point where movies have a lot of remakes.
Yep.
Now we have a lot of remakes, right? So it's like,
Is that like franchise, like licensing stuff, or are you just talking about like genres are the same, approaches
well,
are the
put it like
same?
this: every Nintendo console, you're gonna get another Mario, you're gonna get another Zelda, you're gonna get another Metroid, you're gonna get, you get the same 10 IPs. And it's like, but when you rewind back, Nintendo used to put out all kinds of different things. Sega came out with all kinds of different things, Microsoft, all these different companies played around with all kinds of different things. And a lot of the IPs that we have that are still strong today kind of been created in the 90s when they were still,
Mhm.
Resident Evils, Silent Hills, Metal Gear Solids, Sonic the Hedgehog, like you name it, it's whatever's still popular today that they keep pushing out has probably been around for the last 3 decades or so. You don't hear as many new things. I mean, you do. Like you have Fortnite that's new that kind of took over. But you still don't hear as many. You don't get as many risks or new IPs or opportunities as a designer to really create something that feels fresh, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. And in terms of the players, I mean, I was fascinated. I was reading in preparation for this like, and maybe this is just like ballyhoo, I don't know, but it was like Bartle player taxonomy, which categorizes gamers. Have you heard this into like four main types? It's like
No,
I was just curious, like even it, like I don't know, it said like achievers, explorers, socializers, and killers. Who like the killers like thrive on domination and like competition, and the achievers like aim for like high reward, like whatever. It's like it's again like again it might be
yeah, yeah.
ballyhoo psychology, but what I'm curious about is like how all of this translates, because there are studies that are showing that people, not just kids, are spending hours and hours and hours inside these games at this point. Like, how is it impacting their psychology outside the gaming world too?
Um, it's a great question, actually, because I mean, I've my whole life I play games. I don't play as nearly as much now. I'm more designing and teaching versus playing as much. But it's funny how that works. But um,
Now
how
you're an
does it?
expert. That's why.
No, I know, right? Once you become an expert, you don't even do what you don't entertain that. I think it's like, I mean, I think it depends on who you are. Like some people, it's like music, I guess. Like some people can hear I can hear a rap song all day and not want to go do whatever they're saying in the music. And then you have some people that listen to it and they want to live that exact lifestyle that they hear in the music. So I know, and I hope this is the answer to your question, but I know like, certain people play shooting games and they think, oh, this is right in the kids' mind or people's minds, and they're gonna want to go out and be influenced by this stuff. Um, but I just think it just depends on who you are. I mean, movies, any kind of form of entertainment, like if you are in it or absorbing it, you could be influenced in some kind of way, like outside of that medium, in the real
Totally.
world.
You actually jumped to a different question. So I'm going to go to that question, Andrew, which is I wanted to ask about that. I mean, I think gaming, you've really focused a lot of your energy in this conversation, but also career-wise in the creative aspects of it, right? Like you started as an artist and as a gamer became like, built a career in gaming, which is an amazing thing. And I'm sure there are dozens and, thousands of people around the world who would dream of such a thing. There is something kind of nefarious on the gaming side, which is like, you just mentioned the violence, the depiction of violence and what does that do? The addiction, the addictive quality of, of it. And that's just all digital. It's like we know that social media is being created for us to be addicted to it too, the dopamine hit. So I don't think it's gaming specific. Two
Mhm.
things that came up for me though, besides the violence and the addiction that were really interesting is people are making their careers as gamers, which is completely sedentary. So you have like a exacerbation of an already like movement thing. But the one that got me, and I'm curious if any of these or all of these are being discussed by the industry and especially by the design side of the industry, which is women. I mean, the depictions of women in video games are pretty horrific. And what I was surprised to study, and actually I heard it on NPR this morning as well, in Taiwan, there's a huge thing of like, of women not being treated well in the gaming industry, even though women make up more than 50% of gamers today. How is the industry going to tackle these things? I'm sure if it's against women, it's against people of color and, sexual diversity as well. Like, is the gaming industry addressing these things, or is it just kind of like, oh, well, that's other
Yeah, I
people?
mean, there was a big disruption in as far as like that kind of those tropes in gaming. I think her name was Anita Sarkeesian. I don't want to butcher her last name or anything. But yeah, she created a video series about the tropes in gaming, talking about, depiction of women in games and so forth, right? So there has been a big talk about that. It's kind of been a thing from as far as like being put out front of, gaming news media, I think for like the last decade. And you've seen uh, a plethora a plethora, however you say that word right now, I can't speak it, of games that have, you know, women as the main character, the protagonist, or showing them in different light, not like a weak damsel in distress, um, or not even scantily clad, or so there's been a lot of, but there's also interesting because now I've been noticing like a Naughty Dog has put out a trailer for a game. I think it's called Intergalactic or something. I'm not familiar. I could be wrong. But it showcases the main character, and uh, I think it's just a woman with her head shaved, and people are just like kind of being like, okay, this DEI stuff, like we're tired of putting
Mm.
politics in games. You know, just make a good game. If the character has, you know, if it's just write good characters, like don't try to shove down, you know, don't try to preach, you know, all these things down gamers' throats. Just make good characters, like, and we'll be fine with the character. I get both sides, right?
Yeah.
Because you do need, you know, you need the people that are like, no, we need to start depicting and kind of get people accustomed to, you know, seeing Black people in a different light, women in a different light, et cetera, right?
Yep.
But then I can understand, you know, it's a form of entertainment. You pay your hard-earned money, you just want to play something, have fun, and not be preached to the whole night. You have the right to do that too. So it's kind of like a little war going on with that right now in the
Yeah.
industry. There's definitely been more initiative to kind of get, you know, diversity in gaming and just kind of have a better representation and understanding of different cultures and genders and everything like that. Um, so I will say the industry has actually been definitely, you know, pushing and trying and giving opportunities for to the less fortunate or the underrepresented. I don't know why I can't speak today, but the underrepresented
You're on
groups
camera.
yeah, right, that are there, right? So there's funding available. There's been exposure. There's camps and all these kind of things that can really kind of cater to those groups and really kind of help diversify the industry. And of course, when you diversify, those creators are going to start putting out projects that are based around their experience, their
Absolutely.
you know, and help, you know, kind of alleviate a lot of those issues.
Yes.
It's going to take its time, but you know, I think the industry's really been trying.
Well, we're coming on time, and I have my standard two last questions, but I want to ask
Okay.
one other normal question first, Andrew, because
Okay.
your passion is really clear. And it's not nothing to become an educator, right? So yes, you're still a practitioner, but you have a clear passion for educating and writing. I mean, and sharing what you know and what you've learned. And it comes back to what we just said. If you get more diverse voices, they then share their stories, and it more organically, hopefully, starts transpiring that we have less of the biases and negative kind of impact that we might otherwise have. But I mean, we have a very fast moving world. We have this very big business that we're talking about. What does it take to inspire and teach, frankly, the next generation of creatives, given the changes in technology, the innovation, the market forces, um, specifically in arts, design, and entertainment technologies?
So you said, what does it take?
What's it take to teach and inspire them?
I guess really, I just try to be passionate myself. Like, this is what I like to create. You know, this is like what I like to do. What I tell my students all the time is, you know, I don't want to wait till I'm 60, 70 to retire, give back then to the next generation. I want to give back as I'm creating because I had to learn this stuff myself, right? And I feel like if I'm passionate about the industry, I want to basically be able to pass my knowledge down as I'm getting it to those who are younger than me, those who are aspiring to be. That way we can fast track the innovations, the better projects. Or you know, one of the big reasons I got in is because I didn't see as many people that look like me. That's not my main reason, but it was like, well, let me go get in a classroom where people can see, you know, oh, okay, there are other diverse groups. And I look at it like food or film or anything. Like, I don't want to just eat Mexican food, you know, but I love Mexican food, but I also love Indian food, but I also love food made by women, food made by men, you know, food, but like, you know, so it's like, I feel like with games, it's kind of like that same thing. We get all these different voices in there. Who knows what kind of, you know, uh, uh creativity they're gonna bring to the industry. You know, it's like music. You know, you have different music. You got from regional, you know, different sounds and boom bops and beats and types of singing and rapping and whatever, right? So I think gaming has a lot of space that can be explored by giving back to the aspiring artists or creatives or designers program, whatever. Going to little girls who may not be exposed to it and say, hey, this is an industry, it's creative. Are you an artist? Maybe you would like to create. Maybe you like to see your characters move, interact with your characters. Or are you a songwriter? Maybe you would like to have your music, incorporated in a game or something and see, just kind of just explore. Maybe you won't like it. Who knows? But what does it take though? Like I said, I just think it just take being passionate. And if they see that you're passionate and that you care and that you want them to, explore, just have fun with it, I think they or just soak it up. I don't really kind of force like my students to be Picasso or anything, create, create what you want as long as you're passionate about it and you're really working at what bringing forth showcasing whatever it is that you're trying to create. I think that's enough. You know what I mean? So hope that answers your question.
It does. I love it. Model by doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What you've been featured, Andrew, in so many different magazines and things over the years, but are there like one or two key kind of references that you think of when you like talk about gaming with either students or, I'm sure you have friends and family who are like, what is this? Like, what are the like iconic references to help someone who might be listening to the podcast now who might want to learn more about gaming?
About the creation of games?
About gaming as the industry or the creation of games or any of it.
It's a little hard right now because everything that I've kind of, grew up on kind of seems to be phasing out. Like there used to be websites like Game Trailers. It doesn't exist anymore. Game magazines have kind of gone the way of the dodo now. I don't know. I mean, really YouTube and watching certain streamers. I mean, at first the idea of watching somebody play a video game was weird to me, but they a good streamer will make it fun to interact. It's kind of almost like you're watching them and playing along with them. I think that's a good way to kind of get maybe some kind of exposure of what gaming is in the industry. As far as the creative side, I'm gonna have to say YouTube as well. I think YouTube is that perfect platform for, in my opinion, like, if you want to learn about doing the animation and stuff like that, and you don't want to, actually enroll into a school yet, you just want to kind of play around with it and learn. There's thousands of great tutorials professionally made and that can really teach you, or get your feet wet in exploring the game industry, and whatever it is that you want to do. So
it's amazing. Well, thank you for that. And the last question, I mean, it's obvious the industry is changing as rapidly as the rest of the world, if not faster, because it's that confluence of all pop culture plus technology, etc. One last question, which is always the question I end every interview of Future of XYZ with. What is your greatest hope in 25 years, so in 2050, for the future of gaming?
Mike, I guess that's a good question. I never thought of that. But 5 years from now.
25 years from now.
I think I would just hope that it's still around for one, right? I hope it doesn't. I hope it's just not like one of those yesteryear kind of fads. Gaming was a thing. Two, I just hope that, the spirit of artists are still alive in these games. I hope it doesn't come too commercialized to where it's all about trying to hit you with the dopamine and make people spend money all day, every day. I hope it's still a work of art. I hope it's still acknowledged as a work of art. And it doesn't mean a work of art can't make money. It's just I just hope that there's still room for those creatives to really bring forth these, very interesting projects that we can all experience. And hopefully, they get VR right, we can actually
we can get on the headset next time, Andrew.
Yeah, hopefully, because I mean, I would like to actually be able to explore, those kind of digital worlds, but
the gaming in the metaverse.
Yeah, so I mean, I tried a little bit, but I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wonder. I don't know, 25 years is a long time because when you think about 25 years ago, you know, video games look completely different. The industry looked completely different. So it's like, you know, and as technology has like a kind of a curve where it just kind of gets faster and faster and faster, the 25 years from now is like, I have no idea what gaming would be like.
We
But
might
yeah,
we might be on spaceships to do playing the game.
yeah, on some Jetson type stuff. So I just, yeah, as long as the creative, the art, it's like the creators are able to create. I think that's what I hope for.
I love that as a vision. I feel like that could be like the sum hope of almost every single one of these episodes of Future of XYZ since being presented by IF Design, because it's all around these amazing topics that have real commercial impact, but ultimately, you know, the reason that they exist in the form that they do and have been so celebrated is because of the artistry, because of the creative talent behind them, because of the imagination. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree.
Andrew, it's been a pleasure speaking with you on Future of
Likewise.
XYZ, Future of Gaming. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. It was great. Great.
And everyone watching and listening, you know where to find us, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review so that more people can find out about topics like Future of Gaming and everything else that we have coming in season 7. Andrew, we'll speak again soon, and thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Lisa.